Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coaching Program. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance for those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one of the tools I use to complete that mission. How it works: in 10 minutes time, you will receive a life lesson that you can apply to your personal or professional life just like that. It'll be something packaged and ready to go that you can use right now to improve whatever you're trying to improve. Or you'll find something that at least will reinforce that the plan of action you have already is a great plan of action with a solid plan, solid things working on. Just need maybe a little more time to make it work out. For more help on that directly, I maybe can help you out with that. Check me out at the main website for this podcast, 10minutelifecoach.com. Now, today's podcast is sort of a, I guess a frustration cry, if you will. But it is something that is really useful for people who have been frustrated, have been kind of out of sorts with thinking they have something to say. And I say it in that way, thinking they have something to say, but not having someone to say it to, so not sure if the message is actually valid. Here today, I want to tell you that it doesn't really matter if there's no one listening to you or if people listening to you say you're crazy. You have a message. The message is valid for someone. The issue may be you aren't ready to present it, or your message isn't quite up to par to what people want to hear. So not having an audience or an audience to your liking is no excuse not to work on your message. You may not have the right places to give the message you want to give. You may not have the right opportunities to say what you want to say about what's going on. But if you feel in your heart that something is wrong and you're pretty sure you're on the sanity part where you're not just speaking out of turn and just rambling things together, you can actually prove that what you're saying, what you want to achieve, is achievable. And if it happens, something great will come from it. Then the biggest problem you have is resistance from people who don't want to hear your message or don't want others to hear it from you because it could change the status quo. Change is not always a good thing, and change is usually a hard thing regardless of whether it's good or not. So someone coming in to change the way things work out are usually bad for the people in charge, and sometimes it's really bad and they can't quite convey it to you. Although sometimes it's really good and they just don't want you to make things change. So the fact that you believe you have a message, there are words in your heart or words in your head or words wherever that you want to convey to people in some means and no one seems to be listening to you, is not a reason to not work on that message. It is a reason to work on your message. Now, let me get this straight. I don't want to censor anyone, don't want anyone to make sure that they feel like they're being pushed out of an arena to speak. But if you step up to the mic at the wrong point in time, when you're not ready to give the message, when the people there are not ready to hear the message, that can make things worse. So while you don't have an audience, that's the perfect time to work on the message that you're giving. This is really hard for me to say because that's the sort of things that's been said to me for many, many years as I've worked to gain my audience and gain my influence in the areas that I'm working into. So it's extremely frustrating on a personal level to know that I have published 5 books with a 6th one literally ready for me to press the button, and the readership isn't exactly where I want it to be. I have launched countless attempts to do email newsletters that don't quite fit the realm of where I want them to go and don't quite bring in the people I need to read them and respond to them so I can go where I want them to go. This podcast, while my most popular podcast in my network, is one of 4 that I'm currently producing. And to be honest, it's one of the ones that I rather shift away from to shift towards the others because they should be more lucrative. They just aren't. So because my other podcasts aren't making the money, to be honest, to keep up what needs to be done to keep them up, I still put a lot more effort into this podcast and this mission because it right now is the most profitable. At least it is the one giving the most results. Profit is kind of a relative term in its sense, but this podcast gives greater results for the message than some of the other ones do in various other genres, various other topics. So this is advice that I have to suck up and take very often myself. I have to remind myself, as other people do remind me, that what I'm saying is a good message. What's going out is a great thing, and what's on the inside has nothing to do with how the response on the outside is getting. So I'm still a good person, even if I don't have enough followers on Facebook that I like. I'm still a great father, even if my Twitter feed isn't as popular as I'd like it to be. There are other real aspects of my life and of my work that make a grand difference to other people on a regular basis. Just because they can't say it every single time doesn't mean they don't enjoy it. And just because you don't hear a grand response from what you're doing doesn't mean no one's taking it in. What it means is you're not doing enough in the response to get the right comeback from it. You're tossing something out there, but not really asking it in a salesy marketing way to bring people in. Yes, there is technique, there is sales, there's marketing in every single message that goes out there to the world because someone has to buy it. Everyone is selling something, even if it is an idea, and someone has to buy in and accept it to allow you to know that it's in there. And only a small percentage of people will buy in so much that they will respond to you with whatever you're asking for. So when I ask for comments, there's very few people that send in comments, although there are much greater number of people who are actually taking in the information. I can see that from the data. I talked to you about the data in last week's episode about seeing the data and seeing where it was actually going to and who was actually receiving it and receiving it well, as opposed to where I wanted it to go. From there, I'm shifting some gears on how I'm presenting things in the podcast from here on, or from past on actually. But the data tells me what things are truth, and I have to deal with them. So if the data says these are the people who are paying attention to it, I need to talk to those people. Even if I want to attract more of a certain subset in the group, or maybe I want to attract a different group whatsoever that's not there, I'm obviously talking to a group of people that are responding to it, so I must think about that. So here are some things to think about in your message crafting if you don't think you're getting any response because the message isn't quite put together as well as you think. Number one, check to see if you have a message, because you might just be spouting out random words and sentences and things that aren't coherent to people when you toss them out there. You're tossing them out there junk, and they can't really comprehend it, so they don't know that you're trying to get something out of them. They don't know how to respond. The number two thing to do is to make sure that you're targeting the right people for the message. Listen to what you're saying, listen to how it sounds, and figure out who would actually respond to that message. And then look at who you're actually saying it to and figure out if those two pictures actually match up. Are you talking to the right people in the first place? Are you talking to the wrong people in the first place? You might have a good message. You might actually have a great delivery, but if you're talking to the wrong people who cannot buy what you're selling or will not buy what you're selling, you're having a useless conversation with yourself. Not quite by yourself, but with yourself. And the third thing to know is that change is hard. So if your message requires someone to take an action, do something different, stop what they're doing, and just look around as opposed to keep on moving on, your interruption of that message is an interruption to what they're doing. And that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, especially if they must implement something that they deem harmful, hurtful, inconvenient, just hard to do. So look at the message that you're sending and make sure that it's not going to give people the heebie-jeebies, give people a bad vibe. And if it's supposed to give them a bad vibe, make sure that you followed up with how to get over that bad vibe, how to fix the bad feelings, how to implement whatever change you're adding to their life for the better, and assure them that the time it takes to get to the better will be great time. Now, the message has to be simple. The message has to be succinct. The message has to be clear. But on top of that, the message has to have some sort of magical marketing to it. So make sure you're actually crafting a good message, a solid message, talking to the right people who need, want, or have to have that message. And then, of course, give them the message the way they can receive it so they can actually implement what needs to be done from your message. And that's going to wrap up the podcast for this week. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and thank you so much for listening to this message. and being a part of the message we've been giving out overall for 5 years in the podcast, a solid hope that people that are into personal and professional development can come together, join up, and just be together and encourage each other along the way. And I have something that will hopefully help you in that action. We have an added bonus to the group here, the audio group that hears this podcast, with a real community of people who are looking out for each other, all of us looking out for each other. It's called the $10 Life Coach. It's a simple subscription that allows you to have access to various people who are doing what they can to be better people. No one is any better than anyone else. In fact, I'm actually paying a subscription for the $10 Life Coach myself so that every single thing that everyone inside of the group is going through, I'm going through as well. It's not just a cash grab from people out there. It's literally working through the full process of what goes on. Now, what you're getting from this is essentially a mastermind group coaching from all the folks in there. You have a community of people who are looking to improve themselves, and we get together in various ways and chat each other up. We will put a spotlight on someone every so often and see how they're doing and give them the grilling action. We will encourage, we will uplift, we will be there for you in times of need and times of trouble. It's a very simple mission for a very simple group. I'm asking $10 a month for a commitment to it and to keep the lights on, if you will. Very simply go to the website 10minutelifecoach.com and click on the button for the $10 Life Coach and see if it's something that you want to be a part of. And remember, I'm actually paying the subscription myself, so I'm doing every single thing that goes through there. I'm doing myself. And as an added bonus, any new projects, any new products that are released via 10-Minute Life Coach or probably many other of my products and other brands, you'll get a chance to check out early. You get a check out pretty often, and you get a chance to check it out for free, if not very, very, very low cost as we kick things off and test it. So we want you in the community because we just want you. We want to help you out. Check us out by going to 10minutelifecoach.com and click on the button for $10 Life Coach and see if it's something that's up for you. In the meantime, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. And the podcast is free for real. That's the whole point of the podcast. You may have heard some advertisements added to the podcast in pre-rolls and post-rolls. That's something that is being done to help offset some of the costs of things going as well. You've given us plenty of great feedback and saying it doesn't bother you very much. So thank you so much for allowing me to add those advertisers to this thing so that I can keep this thing going. What I need you to do is to share the podcast. Share it with friends. Share it with people who you know can use a bit of encouragement, a bit of upping their game for personal and professional development. Just send them to the website, 10minutelifecoach.com, and let them see what's going on there. And they can subscribe via whatever means they really want to. We're on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever it's called these days. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spreaker. We're all over the place. We are mostly an Android family, to be honest, but we do have plenty of Apple love, and the biggest hit that we still get from is where we originally put this podcast was on Stitcher. Stitcher gets lots of love. A lot of people still getting us from that website/app. So if that's where you love us, thank you so much. Give us a rating and review if you can, wherever you are, especially on the Apple Podcast, because that's the best way to be seen on that platform. But the biggest rating and review you can give us is just share the links to the podcast to people and talk about it as much as you can. I appreciate that. In the meantime, I'm going to back away. You can check out other projects I have going on at my main website, jclevelandpayne.net. And just be back here next week because I hope you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode of the 10-Minute Life Coach.